Okay, I am continuing with the lecture on Chapter 1, and how has the past influenced today's educational technology, starting on page 9. Well, let's take a brief look at the history of educational computing. If you look at the timeline on pages 10 and 11, you will see that computers have been around since the 1950s. My first exposure to computers was in college in the 70s, and the one computer that we had on my college campus was in a building all by itself. I didn't use it, but I remember seeing guys, since it pretty much was guys that were in this field, carrying punch cards and going into the building to run their programs, whatever that meant. And then during my student teaching, I remember visiting a school that had a lab of computers and classes that would take turns using the drill and practice programs that were on them. I think Westinghouse was the company that funded the grant for that school to get their computers. Then in the late 70s, I took a class through Pioneer RESA. I was teaching in Stevens County, and it was on the Radio Shack TSR-80 computer. And we had to learn DOS program language and type in commands to get the computers to perform things. Well, I remember working with a music teacher, so we wrote a program and made the computer play music, and it was definitely the hit of the whole class. Then in the 1990s, I got my first personal computer, and it was a Macintosh because that's what they were using at the high school, and I was going to Clemson to get my educational specialist degree with a lot of high school teachers, and they all were buying Macintosh, so I decided I would too, and I just loved it. Now, my husband's office had a word processing computer, but I really just was not interested in computers until I started this specialist degree. I eventually advanced to a PC, and then I got the internet. And of course, we didn't have local service providers back then, so I had to pay a long distance fee to connect to the internet. I think it was through Southern Bell in Atlanta. And I also had to get subscribed to AOL. And my first bill, I remember being well over $200 for that first month, which just shocked me. And I just thought, oh no, what have I done? So I started looking around, and then I found that Toccoa Falls College in Toccoa would let me connect through them. And then eventually Hart County EMC got a server, and then finally my local phone company, Altel, who I'm still with. So I'm basically old enough to remember all these things on the timeline, from pre-microcomputers to microcomputers to the internet era. Now I'm going to skip ahead in the book a little bit if you're following along, and turn to page 13 and the question, why use technology? As educators, we're trained to ask, well, what does the research say? Well, the research in educational technology, there has not been a strong case made for the impact on teaching and learning, and the number and quality of studies on educational impact have been disappointing. There's 4 current conditions that make it essential that we do use technology in education. And they are, we've already invested a lot. We've bought the infrastructures in our schools, and we've trained our teachers. So we need to continue just because we've spent so much already. But that's not a good enough reason by itself. There are also attacks or criticism on technology by critics. And I'm reading now from the bottom of page 13. Justifying technology expenditures by confirming technology's benefits is increasingly important in light of recent volleys of criticisms from non-educators. These highly publicized attacks focus on the lack of evidence that technology's benefits outweigh the problems it causes, such as the high cost and the updating the resources and so on. So we need to continue to, or at least this book is saying, to prove those critics wrong. And if you're a technology nerd like I am, I agree with both those issues. The third reason this text says we need to continue with technology is the low teacher usage. And I'm on page 14 now. Clearly, teachers are not hearing a convincing case for technology's benefits unless they're bitten by the bug. There's a lot of them that are just not using it. They don't see any reason to use it. It's more trouble than it's worth, and so on. So we need to continue so we can bring those people on board. And the final reason is the No Child Left Behind Act. This was passed in 2001. And it bases everything that we do in education, it says, needs to be based on scientifically based research and its effectiveness. So like many educational initiatives, technology integration currently lacks this kind of research base. So we need to continue to use so our researchers can gather data needed to continue the funding. So there's a lot of reasons there. You may agree with some of them and you may not agree with some of them. At the bottom of page 14, it also talks about the International Society for Technology and Education, or ISTE, which writes the standards for teachers and students as far as educational technology is concerned. And they have a site called the CARET, C-A-R-E-T, and then the What Works Clearinghouse. And these might be sites that you want to investigate. Then let's look at figures 1.4 through 1.7, beginning on page 15, that also answer this question, why use technologies? Well, the first one is to motivate students. Read through that and you'll find some really good reasons why we need to continue. And I truly believe that's probably the best reason right there. To enhance instruction. 1.6 says to make student and teacher work more productively. And 1.7, to help students learn and sharpen their information age skills. And I think that too is a big key there as far as these kids, you know, technology is going so fast. From when I taught this course just a couple years ago, the things that have been added to this course so that we can let you keep up are just amazing. I had to spend several months preparing for this course so that I could be ready for this new information age and be able to teach you about doing podcasts and screenshots and online videos and that type of thing. So there are reasons why we need to be doing implementing education. We're going to skip back now to page 11. What have we learned from the past? We saw the big timeline. We know that we need to continue doing it, but what have we learned from the past? I'm going to let you read through these. They begin on page 12, but they basically say that no technology is a panacea for education. Computer technological literacy offers a limited integration rationale, and we're going to be talking more about rationale. And teachers usually do not develop technology materials or curriculum. Technically possible does not equal desirable, feasible, or inevitable. And I think this is an argument that teachers always come up with. Well, yeah, we've got the technology there, but is that a desirable way to teach this content? Is it feasible? Is it inevitable? And then things change faster than teachers can keep up with. And this truly is a big problem, as you're probably going to learn in this class, is that there's a whole bunch out there that you may have thought you were very technological savvy, but even me who teaches this course knows, hey, that's an awful lot to keep up with. And also, older technologies can be useful. Teachers always will be more important than technology. And I think that's something that we really have to, take a look at, is that you know, the happiness of our teachers is also a key point. And so we can't force this down their throats. We've got to help them buy in and give them a reason to buy in. So that finishes this section, and I hope you come back for one more.